Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Water Trio Astrology Podcast. I'm here with my dear friends, Cassandra and Alicia. Welcome, ladies.
Hey, Kel. Hey, Cass.
How are you, Alicia?
That's good. So we're going to look at the astrology of the week starting April 22nd in this episode. And I'm kind of excited because this week starts off with a bang. Uranus on the sun, or the sun on Uranus at 2 Taurus. Monday, the April 22nd in Canada and the States, which will be Tuesday for you gals down under and any of our other listeners in the Southern Hemisphere. Any thoughts on this one to kick us off, you two?
Well, this is the first this is the first time this is actually going to happen with Uranus in Taurus, because it didn't happen last time when it dipped in, because it dipped in just after the sun moved out of Taurus. So, yeah, it's going to really throw a spotlight on this whole Uranus and Taurus energy and what it's been doing for people. And I feel like for those who are going through Uranus transits right now, as I know I am, it's going to bring that stuff even more to the surface. It's going to really highlight and bring it up. So, yeah, just lots of feeling, wherever it is in your life where you're feeling like there's a lot of change happening, or where you're having to shift to be more independent or authentic. And I feel like, with the sun in Taurus, there is that resistance to change. But Uranus is in there going, you know what? Come on, move your butt, change it up a bit. Although Venus will already be in Aries by then, so at least there's less resistance. There's a lot more chance to flow. She's ruling that sun in Taurus there, so there will be a bit more dynamism and less of wishy-washy whatever with the Venus in Pisces. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. What about you girls?
Look, I am pretty excited about it. Same deal, Leish. Like, first time we have the sun and Uranus together in Taurus. I really like watching the sun cycle through the sky and checking out those dates each year where the sun conjuncts or meets the outer planets. Like, once a year the sun's with Uranus, once a year the sun's with Neptune, the sun's with Pluto, and that what have you. And it's a great chance to get used to or tune into that Uranus energy. So I think it's a pretty exciting and unpredictable start to the week. I think as you sit down on Monday morning, and the way you think your week's going to go and the way it actually will go will be two totally different things. But with Uranus around, I always think flexibility and spontaneity are the best survival strategies. Like, if everything changes, just go with the change. There can be opportunities in the chaos, so don't be too rigid with what comes up. And the other big buzzword I love for Uranus is authenticity. So that idea of holding true to what's right for you. And, if it's yellow flowers or a Metallica t-shirt or whatever it happens to be, just do you. Like, don't hide what's real for you. Put it out there, basically. What you're interested in. Don't feel that you have to conform or tone it down. Just be like, hey, I've got crazy hair. I'm not going to spend 3 hours trying to make it look like it should in a magazine. This is just what it looks like if you have crazy hair. But maybe you don't. Maybe you have other things.
Crazy mind.
Crazy mind, all the weird is welcome, basically.
Yeah. What about you, Cass?
What about me? Yeah, I sort of think this thing, like, we've had Uranus in Taurus, for a big portion of 2017. It's been back in Taurus now for a good 6 weeks or so. And I kind of get this feeling, it's like when we speak of earthquakes and what have you, they just don't happen randomly. It's like those tectonic plates shift at the core of the earth ever so subtly, ever so slowly over a long period of time. So we have had that maybe sense of build-up or forebodedness, or those attachments to things, or those resistance to things. We all have our inner stubborn streaks somewhere. So there might be that thing that is in your life that you kind of might be aware that is changing or is shifting, and you don't know what that looks like, and you're a little bit nervous about it. And it's like, oh, if I, step into this new frontier, can I ever go back? And it's this sort of feeling that things are shifting and changing. And I think with, there's those are those tectonic plates, whether, where we like them or not. And so I think when we get this aspect, what the build-up kind of suggests is that, you know, you can push things down or you can ignore those little rumblings within yourself, but, you know, eventually they have that potential to bust right open. And so that's where we do need to embrace that, those other themes like the chaos or the change or, but this was our plan. Okay, but now I'm going to go and do that plan. Or it's like, oh, stuff it. I'm going to a corporate event in a Metallica t-shirt, whatever it is for you. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's, you know, maybe bucking the rules or getting a little bit rebellious. You don't have to do what everybody else says. And so that might be our first entree into how we can be experiencing the larger cycle of Uranus as well.
Yeah. I like that analogy you're talking about with the earthquake because, you know, anyone that lives on an earthquake zone, they'll tell you that having lots of little tremors is a good thing because it means that, you know, when there's that period of stability and stillness, it actually means that it's building up to a big bang. So it's, you know, having those little areas of our life where we can allow change in, just doing it in those small ways will stop it being that big because the pressure just builds up and builds up and builds up and then suddenly something really forces you forward. So yeah, it's that chance to embrace those parts. And as well, you know, it's embracing the inner rebel, pushing back against things that may be limiting you until now and really giving this a chance to kind of, you know, give it the middle finger and go, this is actually what I'm going to do. And I think with the sun, you know, there's so much about ego in there, but not bad ego, just this is who I am. This is my identity. This is how I'm going to go forward with this. So maybe in a sense, you know, listen to that inner voice within you, that one that's consistent and constantly driving and do some things that honor that this week, that allow that to come through. And if you're not that comfortable with it, because I know sometimes, especially for those lovely Taurians who are probably feeling this, it's not actually that comfortable to be stepping out and being that different person. It's often about blending in and unifying and making things peaceful. But you need to. We all are. Every single one of us is a beautiful, unique individual. And if we're not shining that light forward, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Conformity, gone. Gone.
Yeah. It's definitely like a break with tradition, you know, do things differently, shake up the status quo. Yeah. I'm really excited about it, to be honest. I think...
Yeah, me too.
Also, it's like the Monday morning and we start this week, the week starting April 22nd. The sun's only just moved into Taurus over the weekend. Venus has only just moved into Aries. And I know we covered that in our last episode, but it's like this Monday morning feels like a real fresh start or sort of some new energy in that sense that things really are different. Yeah.
And coming off the back of that full moon too, it's almost like that turning point and then boom, you know, there's that fresh start, new, you know, just a new feel to it, which isn't, you know, a full moon thing, but it's like we had that full moon on the tipping point of, you know, the end of Libra there, and then, you know, Uranus is coming along. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out for people.
And it's a good segue into what you know, that whole Pluto retrograde as well, you know, what you were talking about, Kel, with the structures and the things letting go and what Pluto's actually been happening and doing in Capricorn, you know, tearing all that stuff down. It's like, oh, okay, Uranus is going to highlight that as well. So there is that kind of, things are just disappearing around us. Actually, this is a tarot card I pulled this morning, which is the Tower, and that's, that feels like Uranus in Taurus and Pluto in Capricorn together.
Is that the Tower card, Leash?
Yeah, it's the Tower card.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, Pluto goes retrograde on April 24th, which is April 25th for everyone in Australia. And I don't know, that just reminded me that this month, April, is such a unique month because Saturn and the South Node and Pluto are so close together this month. closer than they've ever been in more than 100 years. Saturn and the South Node get together and Pluto and the South Node get together, but it usually doesn't happen, within the same sort of 3 or 4 week period. And there is a lot of energy that's been coming through this April about, destroying old or dated structures or obligations. There's been this really strong purification energy. And I think, that's it's still around right till the end of the month. We don't have Saturn on the South Node till the last day of April. I think it'll be 1st of May for Australia. So there is this sense of of pushing, or as you mentioned, Cass, the tectonic plates. They've been moving, and sometimes they've been moving without our awareness. And with Pluto going retrograde, there's a sense of oh, I need to shift, or this can't keep happening anymore. There's an absolute kind of deadline or ending of some kind.
Yeah, totally. I think, what was it that came out of, I think Tony Howard quoted it on his Astrology University page, that, bullshit doesn't survive a Pluto transit. And so when, I think it was Lawrence Hillman that might have said that.
Lawrence did in the Astrology Summit. Yeah.
So, and I think when, Pluto being such a poignant piece of the astrology that we're working through right now, the fact that it's stationing, it's going to turn retrograde, it might be, working out what that bullshit really is, on the micro and of course on the macro as well. So yeah, it's definitely going to be that more internalizing and shifting those feelings within, what structures do I need to let go of or destroy in my own life that just simply aren't working for me anymore. I know we've talked about the houses in our birth charts that Capricorn and all these eclipses and yada yada are activating for us, and sort of reflecting on what April is. It's really much an entree into what this whole 12 months is about, and then moving into January's big kahuna of the conjunction between Saturn and Pluto. So I think, a bit of a retrospective on the month will kind of give you a little bit of your own personal clue and insight as to what might be a continuation of theme for, this year and into early next. So I know for myself, for example, it's in my 8th house, Capricorn. So I even changed banks during Mercury retrograde and reorganized direct debits and all that sort of stuff. And apart from one, very easily fixable thing, it was a seamless transition at a time where I was like, do I really want to be doing this now with all the, Pisces madness that's been going on? But it just felt right. It was an instinctual feel. I was like, right, no, I'm doing it now while the feeling's right. And it was a seamless process. So I guess that sort of, reiterates that it was a very much of a needed change for me. So there was no pushback or resistance. So that was a great thing for me. So yeah, it's like that lean into whatever you feel, and it will be the right choice, no doubt.
Yeah. And it's also, I've been talking to a lot of people about suddenly they're just letting go. They've been butting their heads against things since Saturn moved into Capricorn, in December 2017. And suddenly they've gone, you know what? I just can't do it anymore. And yet something awesome and new has come in. So it's that sense. And I must have had about not one, not two, but about 5 conversations in the last 2 weeks about exactly those lines with clients, with friends. And so it really feels like something else has come in. So it's like they've learned a lot about tenacity and perseverance and strength through what they've been butting their heads against, but actually where they need to be focused is somewhere else. And, for me, it's been happening in the 10th house, and there's a bit of that for me as well around career and what I'm meant to be doing and where I'm meant to be going and what it looks like, the kind of structures I've built up with it. But I'm also really aware too that all this, Pluto, South Node, Saturn together is actually the beginning of 6 months of Saturn and the South Node retrograding backwards together through the sky, because South Node retrogrades anyway all the time, and then Saturn, and so that whole point of them sitting there together will literally go through, I think, until October. The two of them will be in the same 2 degrees together. Looking at points in history when this has happened, at the same time. It happens about every 25 to 30 years from what I could figure out, because I got all Scorpio and did some research on this.
Love it.
We're talking about the beginning, like literally when World War II started, the whole Hitler invading Poland and Russia and Germany coming together and actually making an agreement that not that they would work together, but they wouldn't work against each other, that kind of stuff. Another time later was when the Berlin Wall fell. You know, that was quite literally, you know, letting go of old structures so new things could come in. There's some others that are slipping my mind right now, but it really is that the whole way of living that we knew, the traditional things that were in place, the hierarchies, will not survive this. You know, what happened in World War II, especially in Europe, and the way that women were suddenly allowed into the workforce because they were needed to be. And it totally changed family structures and losing so many men as well. Just the way that society functioned at those levels just totally changed after that period of time. The traditional hierarchy of men being the rulers and the patriarchal thing, that was really the signal time for things to shift and change. So it'd be really interesting what happens worldwide and personally to people over the next 6 months.
Hugely so. Yeah, I guess that's just a huge part of, you know, these times that we live in. You know, the Chinese sort of say, may you live in interesting times, and these are kind of interesting and hectic. And yeah, I think that quote, Cass, that sort of launched us into this discussion, you know, bullshit doesn't just survive a Pluto transit. It was Lawrence Hillman at the Astrology University 2020 Epic Cycles of Change and Renewal Summit. That just happened recently. I think you can still get the recordings online, but that was all designed to look at that cycle you're talking about, Alicia, because Saturn, Pluto together, I think particularly in the sign of Capricorn. You know, Capricorn is the sign that really represents tradition and structure. It talks about things that have existed for a really long time, but the Saturn Pluto kind of really speaks to where power has been consolidated or even hoarded. And with the South Node in the mix, there's this sense of like, we need to decentralize that power, or we need to destabilize people who are, you know, power hungry or using power for kind of illicit or personal, you know, they're kind of just doing it for themselves rather than making a contribution or giving back in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really kind of around the time when the last conjunction between, you know, Jupiter and Saturn, where that we had Pluto and Sagittarius at the time, and globalization started to become such a key word. And it sounded great in theory, but what has sort of happened with that is that, you know, all of the prophets or, you know, big people, it just sort of all got funneled in one direction. So I think there will be that breaking down of kind of what's been built up, at least over the last 20 years and even beyond that. And it will probably, you know, we got different sorts of, you know, people, you know, like probably next thing Australia want to be a republic, you know. So there's this sort of sense that things will start really breaking away from the way that we've really been kind of headed towards over the last 20 years. So at least from that more Capricornian's perspective. And then, of course, we break down some of these structures, these power dynamics, and then hopefully move into a little bit more of the Aquarian side of things moving forward, where it becomes perhaps a little bit more, you know, less centralized, at least with the interests of certain people, you know, at the top of the pyramid, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of these larger themes are just kind of pinged a little bit this week with the Pluto retrograde. And then, you know, Thursday, Friday, we do have the moon moving through Capricorn. So she's actually picking up on the Pluto-Saturn South Node pairing. So there is a little bit of like reality check versus, you know, what do you want to let go of? What are you willing to kind of maybe pull apart, or if you like symbolically burn up so that you can have, you know, clear space or calmness to come through.
The crucible of transformation. That's what it feels like.
That's a really good point, Leash. That's such a good point. So I guess that brings us to the weekend.
Yes. Yes. And Mars meets Neptune.
I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Is it like a weekend for wine or the beach or something?
Yeah, I haven't really got that far. Still got to work it out. But yeah, certainly the wine beach weekend combo if you live in a climate that's beachable.
And it's a long weekend. Well, almost a long weekend. I think a lot of people are going to make it into a 4-day long weekend here in Australia because of the Anzac Day holiday. So
on Thursday, correct?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my little nephew's turning 1. Oh my god!
I know. I thought about that. It's crazy how fast that time's gone. I remember being at the gym when he was born. You know, we were kind of counting. When's he going to be? What ascendant is it going to be?
I know, we were all looking at the astrology. Like, has she had him yet? Is it this rising sign? And I think I said to you guys, I don't want this one. I want the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's right.
That.
Of course, my sister has no idea she's in labour trying to get the baby out of her. So she...
At that point, you don't care what their ascendant's going to be. It's just like,
well, no, of course. And it was one of the most nerve-wracking things having my sister go through that, or one of my sisters. I've got 3 beautiful sisters, and just one of us has had a baby. And I was in tears at some points, like just so... anxious and worried for her, basically. Anyway, you guys have both had kids. You know how emotional it is. I always say it was like, I feel like it's sort of the closest that I might get, in the sense that she's one of my sisters who I'm very close to. I don't, by choice, I won't have my own children. So yeah, it's a very profound thing. I mean, obviously, but when you've gotten a little bit closer to it, it's like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think it's more emotional for other people rather than you when you're going through it, because it's like, I just want to get through it, and then you get to the other side and you're absolutely drained. And but of course there's that moment of just holding that beautiful little being there. But it feels really right for this Mars Neptune.
And I guess that's a good thing to keep in mind. There's been a lot of focus on what is potentially going to be lost from us through this meat grinder, in air quotes. But, at the end of it, there is good things to be looked forward to. And, that is the rhythm of life, whether we like it or not, or, a lot of people are so disconnected from nature now that, nothing is born until something dies. And it's just the cycle. And the fact that we're starting to talk about babies now, there is a certain death of our identity when we become mothers or fathers, or whether we adopt a child or whatever. And I remember the first time I got to leave the house with just wallet, keys and phone. I mean, that was like, I felt like a new experience again after, baby bottles, changes, all these sorts of things. And, we have this beautiful new being in our lives, but there will always be that, the BC, as I call it, the before child, and I think that this year for many of us will have that sort of before and after type of feel to it once we get to sort of 2020, 2021, and they'll be like, oh yeah, remember that 2019. So it is a bit of a turnaround point for a lot of us in many different ways, collectively and individually as well.
Birth is messy. Birth is full of blood and guts and pain and tension and stress.
There's also poop.
Oh yeah, there's poop.
Thanks, Carol.
There is. And I won't go into my poop story with birth, but anyway.
But that's a really good point, Leash. Like, I know I wrote about, our kitchen renovation on my blog earlier in the month. It's the same kind of thing. If you want to make something new or fresh or shiny or, just new, you have to go through the messy creation or destruction process first. So
even when we were all Marie Kondoing, our houses got messy before they got clean again.
Oh my God,
Oh, look at all this shit that I own, And then you sort of got to that point, oh, why did I even start this? It's taking so much longer than I thought it would.
Totally.
And then you finally get through the other side. And I think we've all become a little bit or maybe just, sometimes we forget that the process also has its own merit and its own value, and this is kind of April. It's a bit of a process month, and that is the mean time, the treading water, the marking time, however you want to describe it, is sometimes unpleasant. And we are in that sort of that space between eclipses, and knowing, the intensification that these ones are likely to offer as well. So, yeah. Do we have any more aspects?
No, I just wanted one last things on this Mars. There's a part of it because of the Neptune has had so much focus with that Mercury retrograde mayhem that was around that. I feel like we got a really good sense of what that Neptune was and what those visions and ideals that we may have. And this Mars is coming in to bring the tension to that point to go, I want to fight for those ideals, and those ones I want to cut away. These are the ones I'm willing to put all my energy and passion and desire into, and these are the ones that aren't worth it anymore. So it's like we reevaluated, reassessed, and now we know really where we want to go. So the Mars is going to give us that drive to really push forward into this as well. So there's definitely a sense of letting go, but there's also a reinvigoration of some of those other desires and ideals that we wanted to fight for and chase after.
Beautiful. So that's the Mars square Neptune coming in on the weekend on the 27th, 28th.
Yep. So it's late Saturday night here, isn't it? So it must be Saturday morning in the US.
Yes. I beg your pardon. Yeah, it's all Saturday. Sorry. I thought I had my asterisks to make it the next day in Australia, but I didn't. That's just how I drew the messy Pisces symbol on that day. So that's great. Lots of food for thought this week. Sorry, Cass.
Yeah, we have sort of harped on a lot about the less desirable aspects of astrology, but just before we wind up, we do have a Moon-Jupiter conjunction this week. So that's, a little bit of a glimmer of hope in everything. So what's that, the 23rd, about late
Tuesday.
On the 23rd for us. So
I think that's 23rd for everyone. So there is a bright spot. And that's kind of how the moon cycle is working at the moment. We've got Jupiter and then the Saturn South Node Pluto. They're in signs next to each other. So we get the optimism, and then we get the reality check about 48 hours laid
Yeah.
So it adds an optimism
point.
You guys said the same thing. I love it.
But it adds that optimism to that day because that's the same day as the Sun Uranus. So it's like, shit's going to fall apart, but hey, we're happy. We'll be embracing it and going with it.
Yeah, exactly. She'll be right. She'll be right, mate.
I love
She'll
it.
Be right.
I love it. So what do you gals have going on? Anything you want to share with our listeners that's coming up for each of you?
I will have my new moon group happening on Thursday, the 2nd of May for anyone on the Sunshine Coast. So that'll be the new moon in Taurus. So to hop onto Facebook and book in for that.
Excellent.
For me, I'm just pretty much, consults at the moment, heavily booked with client appointments, and then start and sort of in the writing den as well, back in that sphere as well. So clients, nothing really special right now. No.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not saying that what I'm doing is not special, but I don't have anything, any
extra
exciting news to announce at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Cass, I know you and I are we're starting to get in that pre-NORWAC conference prep stage. I'm not quite there yet. I'm just trying to get other things done so I can get to that stage. But
exactly,
it's coming up.
Yeah, this is a bit of I guess in reflection of the astrology, I think April is just me trying to tie off as many loose ends as I can so I can then dedicate those first 2/3 of May to NORWAC prep. And then, of course, after NORWAC, I'm going down to San Diego to do some lectures and workshops down there in mid-June. So lots of prep and things to...
You're going
time
on
of day
tour,
again.
which is fantastic. And the chickens have chimed in to make sure they do not get ignored. And Cass and I have come prepared. We're going to have a ceremonial Cadbury cream egg after our
just
show.
Opened it. Your egg's bigger than mine, though, Cal. I've only got a little one.
Sure, but
Egg envy.
it's about half the size of what they used to be. And it's not even wrapped in the nice silver foil. Like, the lid just comes off. I don't know.
That must be
those. I've seen those before.
I love overpriced, shiny, pretty looking chocolate, and I only have it once a year, and I want to get that foil, and there's no foil. I mean, like, this is a disappointment. But anyway.
You gotta have the special wrapping.
It's a first world problem, for sure.
Oh, I heard something cool environmentally. If you get, because Easter egg foil can be bad for the environment. So if you get all your foil and wrap it up into one ball, you can throw it in your recycling bin and recycle it. How's that for a tip?
I have heard this from Sarah Wilson in her latest book, Simplicious Flow. She has said even the tin foil off like chocolate and stuff, you're supposed to like put it all together and in the recycling or something. So that can be the Sun, Uranus, Earth Day environmental tip from your astrologers here. So I guess that's it from us this week.
Did you have anything you wanted to announce, Kel?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't. I'm not sure if I'm teaching a webinar on the 4th of May. I have to check with my boss, aka Tony, tell me what I'm doing. I'm not sure. Tony and I run a calendar and then we change it, and some get updated and some don't. So I have nothing of clarity to announce. So I'll have more information hopefully in the next episode. My next online course will be running in June. But all my other programs are available for instant download. So if you're looking to study astrology or you want to improve your chart interpretation skills, I've got lots of resources on my website for you. So I think that's us this week.
Awesome.
Pretty much.
Okay, so we will see you all again very soon. Thanks for listening, and ciao for now.
And don't forget to hit subscribe if you like us.
Oh, that's right. That's what we're supposed to say. Subscribe on SoundCloud or iTunes or YouTube. You can also you can watch us on YouTube if you want the full madness experience of the Water Trio Astrology podcast.
And the Metallica t-shirt, of course.
And the Metallica t-shirt and the flowers and the Easter eggs and the chickens. Okay. Everybody has been accounted for. All right. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.